Hey, this is John Hope Bryant. I'm the founder, chairman, and chief executive officer of Operation Hope, here visiting Operation Hope, South Africa. I was honored to join John Jacoby, the director of the Peace Corps South Africa campaign, movement, and mission, here on behalf of the United States government, but mostly working with the people and for the people of beautiful South Africa. I'm talking now to the Peace Corps members after signing I believe, a historic memorandum of understanding, meaning that in the future people will look back at this time and date and see it set in the sense and in the framework of a historical overall campaign to transform the lives of the people of South Africa, and not just to serve them. You're here to serve them. You're here to be of service to them and our nation. You're here on a noble campaign, but I would argue that it's really framed in the larger context of a historic moment and a historic movement. And that's the reason I'm now doing this video message just for you, Peace Corps members here in South Africa. I've stood with you several times. I've spoken at your graduations. I have observed your grace and character and care from one end of the country to the other, as you have stepped up and stepped into the breach to provide leadership in this country. But what have you had some opportunities that were not in your current toolkit? Some opportunities for transformational change and not just for service and care. To focus on not just civil rights justice, some would argue that the Peace Corps was actually really created in the crucible of civil rights justice by the Kennedy administration during that historic time of civil rights emerging in the U.S. and all around the world. Of course, following some 20 years, 30 years later here in South Africa with the rebirth of a nation. But what if we're talking about now not civil rights justice, or not just civil rights justice, but civil rights empowerment for all? To give you the tools to teach people the language of money, financial literacy. Now, I know the first thing you're going to say is, well, what good is it to teach them money when they don't have any in the rural areas? That's a very good point. But that's like also saying, what good is it for an American to come to South Africa not knowing the language, the culture, the social norms, not being of the people, maybe being of a different color or race or creed? That didn't stop you from coming. That didn't stop you from committing. That didn't stop you from caring. And over time, you began to integrate and to become part of this community. In time, you were one, and it was completely appropriate. This is sort of the discussion I want to have with you about civil rights. We need to aspire and to encourage the people of this country to have big dreams, to not settle, to not believe they can't. And yes, they don't have any money right now. But if you don't understand the language of money today, and you don't have a bank account today, you're an economic slave. Freedom used to be democracy. The right to vote was the way you empowered yourself in that environment of democracy. But in today's day and age, the issue of freedom has, I believe, changed. The new definition of freedom is self-determination. Your ability to create a determined, self-empowered life and dream made real for you and your family. We're living, though, in an economic age, in a time where money and GDP growth and jobs trump almost everything else. Put more simply, the new racism is poverty. It's not about race and the color line. It's about class and poverty. So the first tool to set people free, beyond issues of social justice, which are important, is teaching folks the language of money. And then we're going to talk about entrepreneurship and small business and creating self-employment projects right there in those villages, right there in those townships, right there in those rural communities, serving their own people in a dignified and dignity-rich way, letting people do for themselves, teaching them how to fish and not just giving them a fish. I think it'll change everything. And then ultimately, when we bring Hope Business in a Box, designed for young people in South Africa to start their own business based on the entrepreneurship training, based on the financial literacy training, based on the course in dignity, giving them the seed corn, a little capital, few rand, and an idea that they can make real in their own life, right in their community. I think that that'll make education real for them, and connect education or reconnect education with aspiration, and off there we go. So I think that this is a dream maker for children, and a democracy leveler, stabilizer, and resetter for adults. In other words, it gives people in this day and age who are South African, who have been enjoying this newfound freedom of going where they want and doing where they want, a new definition, a new goal line of what freedom actually looks like in the post-Mandela age. Mandela, I think himself, would say don't stop with the work that he was able to do. Like Dr. King, I think he was moving forward to this issue of economic empowerment for all. To not just be able to go into the restaurant, but to pay the restaurant bill. To not just be able to stay at the hotel, but to own the hotel. To not be able to fish in the lake, but to ultimately be a producer of jobs that is maybe farming fish and pools of those that are not endangered species, pools of food, fish, from that lake that would then make it to market in the city, in the township, in the villages, maybe even export it. To dream big dreams, to become entrepreneurs, to become small business owners, to become self-employment projects. And this is not just a fancy dream. That's where all jobs come from in the United States, not from big business, from small business. 70% of all jobs come from companies with 500 employees or less, and half of all jobs from companies of 100 employees or less. And this, I think, can be a vision made real for South Africa. And if all you do is to show one person in one village or one township how to take care of themselves, how to do for themselves, how to give them financial dignity, you have changed a life, and in so doing, you've changed a country for the future. And that is why I believe you're living in a moment in history. That's why I believe our MOU is so incredibly important, and that's why I'll come back again and again to help to empower a new generation of civil rights leaders for a new time. This is your time. This is your moment to be the change you want to see in the world. I'm honored to be with you. I'm honored to be partners, and God bless you. Thanks.